This is the Final Word Daily. India, Australia, second test at Delhi of a third day. And, well, you might notice it's very bright at the moment. That's because it's the middle of the afternoon.
It's so glary.
It is so
glary.
glary.
I need my Ravi Shastri sunglasses.
And that's because the test match is finished. This show is brought to you by Visit Melbourne. You can use the extra 2 days to plan your trip to Melbourne. Visit melbourne.com. But Adam is going to tell you about a day that wasn't 90 overs, but it involved a lot of action. He's going to tell you about that whole day in 30 seconds.
Yeah, joining the ranks of the Trent Bridge 60 and the Cape Town 47, there'll be the 9 for 47. I'm sure it'll be spoken of in similar tones. 9 for 47 was the collapse Australia endured today, at one stage losing 4 wickets with the score on 95, and it all started so well. Travis Head hits a boundary to get them going again. They lose their second wicket with the score on 65, all out 113. India set 115 to win. Pujara appropriately there at the end on 30-odd not out in his 100th test match with Shikhar Bhatt, the wicketkeeper, who batted really nicely and appropriately hit a towering 6 on the sweep after 6 Australian batters fell that way earlier in the session.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to start with India because this Indian team, they just don't lose at home. 16 series on the trot, unbeaten in home conditions. 36 of their last 44 test matches in home conditions they've won. And there were points in this game where Australia had the upper hand, and there were points where they could have pressed home that advantage. But you still thought, I mean, when India were 7 down in their first innings, you still thought, well, Ashwin, Akshar Patel, they could put on 50 or 60 or 70 and eat into the deficit. When Australia were batting today, I thought, well, they're a good chance, they're as good a chance as not to get bowled out for 150 or so, and maybe that'll be a testing enough target. And in the end, India exceeded expectations on both those measures. They wiped off the deficit with the bat in the first innings, and they bowled out Australia even more cheaply than they might have done. But the way that Australia batted this morning, it very quickly became panic. It looked like desperation. It looked like they didn't have an idea of how to try to survive on these pitches. In Nagpur, they were defending and they got out and they had a collapse, and so they came out here, it seemed, thinking, well, we've got to attack everything. And they went after everything. They played sweep shots at everything, reverse sweeps, attempted big hits over the leg side, all the rest of it, and it just didn't work.
So 2 sides to this. Jadoo, 7 for 42, best career figures, back-to-back player of the match. He's a freak. Ashwin got them going at the start of today by dismissing Head, the overnight man who was batting so well yesterday, and started with the 4 today. So, they take all 10 between them, not for the first time against Australia, and dare I say, won't be the last time either.
16 wickets in the test match for Jadeja and Ashwin.
There you go. I mean, they just make an art form of humbling Australian sides each time that they play here in India. But it reminded me of the way the Australians continue to play the sweep in a premeditated fashion. And we've been watching that TV show, The Last of Us, the zombie apocalypse. Well, not really zombie apocalypse, but kind of
fungal infestation apocalypse. It doesn't quite have the same ring. It sounds like a show about tinea, which would not necessarily be a great show.
But this felt that way, that they were sort of in a trance, walking towards their demise. And that was no better summed up than in the shot that Pat Cummins played.
Reverse sweep.
Yeah, Matt Kuhneman at the end. Kuhneman at the end was the perfect. I mean, he's obviously not to blame, but having seen all these guys fall before him, he decides to have a reverse as well. Mm-hmm. And again, like last week, they were criticised for not having a plan to transfer pressure back onto the Indians, and I think we were quite complimentary about the Australians in the first innings, seemingly having some sort of plan. But today, the plan. No one can tell me this wasn't some preordained strategy this morning. You can't have 6 guys getting out that way. Was it 5 bowled, a couple of other leg before?
Jadeja just bowled pretty much everybody. Just went straight through and hit the stumps. He had Hanscom caught it slip, and everybody else
castled. And one of those was one that shot through and Labuschagne off the bottom of the bat.
Yep.
But you don't play back. I saw Labuschagne shadow batting when they were fielding at the end. Don't know why. But he kept coming forward. I suppose that's him drilling into himself that playing back to Jadoo was never going to work. But yeah, the idea that this had to have a degree of premeditation, and it's all summed up. The emblem of it is Pat Cummins, who he walked out. Pete Hanscom gave him a bit of a shrug of the shoulders and a pat on the bum coming onto the field when they were sort of changing spots. Of course, Hanscom had been just dismissed for a duck. At that point, they'd lost 3 wickets with the score on 95. And first ball, Cummins goes for a huge heave across the line, has his off-stump bent back. 3 wickets in 3 balls at that stage, 1 to Ashwin to end his over, and 2 for Jadeja to put him on a hat-trick for the second time in the series. Now thoroughly overwhelmed, and look, what can you say? We've seen this one before. They've won 5 of their last 33 test matches in Asia going back to 2008, and they had a genuine chance here. They had a proper look, and what you're saying there about who was winning the Test match throughout. Both Rohit Sharma and Pat Cummins at the press end of Test presentation, but Rohit especially was saying we were behind in this match when we got here this morning, knowing that they were going to have to bat fourth. But having got a good look at it, they couldn't make the most of it, and that'll probably be the only meaningful look they get in the series.
Yeah, and ending up with India 4 down, I mean, it tells you that had that target been 180 even, it would have been extremely testing. Had it been over 200,
Could have been a classic. We got here this morning thinking what we said last night.
Yeah.
Had the preconditions for a stunning finish, and in the end it's over in what? 8 sessions.
It's over about as quickly as the previous one was,
Yeah.
which wasn't competitive and felt like a pasting pretty much throughout. I mean, it's Ashwin who starts off the day. Khawaja's a spectator because he was out last night. That lovely shape over the ball gets it to turn away from Travis Head, and the finest little nick through to the keeper. That was a quality piece of bowling and a piece of understandable batting after Head had driven one boundary. And then, the Labuschagne one you mentioned, it seemed like he was trying to play it to the offside, trying to punch that ball away, but it was straight at his stumps. And then all of the sweeps, the one straight at the stumps, everything we heard about, like Matthew Renshaw's preparation of coming in as a spin specialist and all the training he'd been doing against spin, he just immediately started reverse sweeping. And there was one from, the 2 runs that he scored on this tour so far, from Jadeja, that the reverse sweep he plays off middle stump from a ball that keeps a little low, skids into him, pops up off the glove, lobs up in the air, could easily have been a catch had they had a, what would it have been, a backward point in place. It happened to land safely, but there was no control in the stroke. And the way that he's out, and then
he's just a better player than that. Like the thing with Renshaw, I feel a little bit the same about Carey, but slightly different. With Renshaw, really good cricketer, and we've seen that in Australia, we've seen that in England. Indeed, we saw it at times in India back in 2017 as well, and Bangladesh. He's no doofus, yet I don't think he's giving himself a chance to succeed when his only mode of defence is sweeping and reverse sweeping. And I'm not sort of some stuck in the mud, don't reverse sweep kind of cat. Anyone who's listened to our show for a longer period of time knows that we're supportive of players batting resourcefully and taking the best of T20 cricket. But Renshaw is doing it from the outset and kind of not giving himself the chance to get in first. And the same applied to the way that Smith got out. He wasn't even close to set.
It was interesting
how
how far away he was. I mean, he goes down and plays a conventional sweep. Big turn in from Ashwin, but he's nowhere near it. It hits him on the pad.
He missed it by a good 6 inches. Now, when is Steve Smith... again, I watched Smith over here 6 years ago rattle off those 3 centuries, and I'm not saying he didn't sweep, but it wasn't like his default option was to always sweep. And this morning, again, it sort of felt like there was this assumption that the only way they were going to get out if you're alive was if they scored super quickly. And to do so, they need to be putting pressure on straight away via the sweep to knock these 2 bowlers off their lengths. And, heads up, as Jadeja said, in the post-match presser, he was laughing at Australia pretty much. He's like, don't sweep me on this track. They know. Pujaro said it as well. Pujaro said in the Flash interview, probably not the right surface to be sweeping on. Apparently Matthew Hayden said it on television on day 1. This is not the pitch to be sweeping on, and yet that fell on deaf ears in the Aussie dressing room.
Well, I mean, everybody carried on. Alex Carey, reverse sweep, lost his leg stump. Nathan Lyon, sort of cross-batted shot, dragged it back onto the stumps. Kuhnemann, reverse sweep. Loses his poles again. I mean, the bottom of the scorecard it looks like an 1880s one when they didn't actually track whether there was a catch taken or whatever. They just record the bowler's name. Bowl Jadeja, bowl Jadeja, bowl Jadeja. 183 wickets between Jadeja and Ashwin against Australia now.
Blimey.
They could crack 200 in this series.
Oh, they will.
The way that they're going at the
they've bowled
moment.
Australia out together today. They barely need Akshar at the moment. Their seamers aren't even getting a look in. Did Siraj even bowl in the second innings? Probably not.
He did not. Nor did Pat Cummins, and fair enough, because they came out needing to defend 115. Started with Kuhnemann, got Lyon on at the other end, got Murphy into the attack later. Do you think Murphy was a bit underbowled in this game, given how well he bowled in Oakport?
He didn't get on until, over 21 in the first innings. The way he set up Kohli with those sliders across him from around the wicket, he continues to impress. It's the only positive really from this test is that, well, not the only positive, that's an exaggeration.
Hanscom's batting in the first innings, maybe.
Khawaja, first innings put to one side. Today anyway, was that Murphy was able to do Kohli across him 4 or 5 times and then finally stumps him, and finally gets him stumped, and Alex Carey finally notches one in that column, having had 18 months into his test career or whatever it is now.
I think that was Kohli's first dismissal stumped as well.
How's this? Kohli has been dismissed once stumped today. Sachin Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid also dismissed stumped once in their long careers, and the bowler who got both of them, the big wheelie bin, the King of Spain, Ashley Giles.
Wow, okay. Kohli also went past 25,000 runs for India today across formats. I'm not a big believer in across formats records, but that's significant. That's a lot of runs. That's a lot of runs. But look, the way they start off, I mean, Nathan Lyon picks up a wicket with his first ball on leg stump. I mean, this was a fortunate one, you'd have to say. But KL Rahul middles it, the flick, straight into short leg, pops up in the air, and Alex Carey takes the rebound catch.
Just like Sachin.
Ndulkar, Ponting. Langer, was it, at short
I think
leg?
it was Langer up to Carey, up to...
Ponting.
Was it Ponting, was it?
Yeah,
Yeah, Mumbai
Ponting who dived
2001.
across and took the catch there, and then Rohit Sharma manages to run himself out and sort of blames Pujara. Probably wasn't Pujara's fault. He looked up and saw Rohit running at him, so he ran. I suppose he could have said Rohit Sharma was smoking them at that point, and if this were an ordinary game, Pujara might have gone, look, I'm going to go back and get run out, you stay out here. But it was the 100th test run-out situation, like Labuschagne and Warner at the MCG.
Oh, yeah.
You can't run someone out in the 100th test, so Rohit went, all right, I'll go. You better stay out here and win the test match, which Pujara did, to his credit. And then Kohli comes in and played really nicely for a time, as he did in the first innings. Looked in control, even though the pitch was spinning. And then, like you say, Murphy comes on, dries him up. Lyon as well. They bowled about 5 overs for 1 run at one point, and Kohli started to get twitchy, and Murphy goes across him, beats the outside edge several times, and then Kohli thinks, I'm just going to walk at this one. Oh, what do you know? It went on straight with the arm, just like the other ones had done. And he was, there was no need for the third umpire to get involved. He was done by a mile, and the 4th wicket to fall when Shreyas Iyer he bombed 1-6 over mid-wicket, tried again. I mean, why not? They were close enough that it was worth the risk just to wipe 6 runs off the deficit at a time. So he's out, but Pujara's able to finish it off with KS Bharat, who got promoted above Jadeja.
Well, I was going to say, elevating KS Bharat was a good shout. He's in the series now, isn't he? He didn't make runs last week, didn't make runs the other day, but 23 not out at the end. And I mentioned in the 30-second summary that the towering swept 6 that he hit off Travis Head at his 1 over in the 4th innings. It was almost a statement that they weren't going to play the sweep at all until they were within 10 runs of victory, and a giant 6 swept, just to really rub salt in the wounds. Kuala
Lumpur Rahul probably going to struggle to be in the team for the 3rd test. They pick a new squad. Surely they've got to open with Shubman Gill after this.
You think they'll make a change there, although they do have a new chairman of selectors, don't they, after they...
I don't think they have a chairman of selectors at the moment. I think it's a vacant position. The sting being that I lied to you about turning the microphone off and didn't turn it off.
Yeah, all of that.
Oh, so well set up. Oh, it was like Ocean's 11. With more lying. And then Australia will have, presumably, Green comes back in. They're kind of being cagey about trying to hint that Warner could still play. Surely he can't play. He's got a broken arm. I mean, I know it's a fracture. So he's not going to play in 10 days.
Realistically, Head will open with Khawaja. Green will come back at 6. They'll have the option of playing Mitch Starc. Although they may want to stick with their 3-spinner configuration with Cummins, the captain. Then they'll leave Renshaw out. Regardless, he'll make way for Green, you think.
Hanscom will go to 5.
Hanscom will go to 5, and they did say before the series started that they could fly people out after the 2nd test. So I suppose eyes will be on whether they wish to fly a spare batter out. I mean, that could happen.
Glenn Maxwell's batting in grade cricket this weekend. It couldn't be any worse.
I didn't even want to say it.
If
you want a player who's competent against spin, I know a guy that made 100 against India.
Yeah.
At Ranchi back the last time they played against Ashwin and Jadeja, and has been playing cricket over here since he was a teenager. So
If you want someone who's the only player aside from Steve Smith to make 100 since Michael Clarke made 100, I think in Delhi actually, wasn't it, in 2013 that Clarke got the top?
It was the first test. It was in Chennai, but still, it's a long time ago.
Oh, well, a long time ago. A long time since India lost a series over here, and they haven't done so since then either. Hall of Fame. This is where we pick a moment that tickled us throughout the day. It's brought to you by the Visit Melbourne campaign. That's where we're from. We're here visiting Delhi. You could go and visit Melbourne. You've got plenty of time to plan your trip.
You can get there and get back. You've got 2 extra days. If you're here, you can, instead of having... Well, I'm doing that. I'm going back to London tonight because...
because you have a new baby daughter who you would like to see.
For more than a few minutes at a time. So, but indeed, you can visit Melbourne. You should visit Melbourne. Why wouldn't you want to visit Melbourne? I suspect the response to Australia's loss in Melbourne might be fairly fierce.
I think it will be pretty fierce. And so if you, for instance, were an Indian supporter feeling pretty good about yourself, this might be a great time to go over there. And you don't need to say anything to anyone. You can just walk around and feel smug about it. Just quietly, internally. You can wander down to Grave Street, have a little coffee, do some shopping, and then once in a while just think, I wonder if that person likes cricket. If so, ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. So visit melbourne.com if you want to go and figure out all the nice things that there are to do in Melbourne. Now, what do we got? For me, I think, and this is across the test match as well, the Australian shithousery of milking the stumping referrals to try to get other referrals. They've been doing this consistently, even when they lost all 3 of their reviews in the first innings. anytime the ball beats the bat by a narrow margin, Steve Smith especially was right into this. He'd be going to square leg going, how's that for the stumping? The back foot's completely planted. It's never moved. I mean, Pajara had a couple of these. But they know that if the umpire looks at the stumping, they have to look at other dismissal modes, and so you get a freebie review. I mean, it's very lawyerish, but like if you know the laws, then you can try to bend them to your advantage. It's like BHP taxes level of DRS use. You know?
Well, on that, I mean, I'm going to go back to the Carey stumping. So 58 catches in Test cricket before his first stumping, a nicely taken one at that. He missed a couple in Pakistan last year from memory, but he's kept well so far in the series, so a nod to him. And I've already mentioned it, but that massive six that Shikhar Bharat hit when they were 9 away from winning, that felt like such a symbol. And I suppose even the way that Jadeja was genuinely laughing with Sanjay Manjrekar about Australia's willingness to sweep him all day long. Like, he couldn't believe his luck. So, today was one of those days.
It's a pasting. It's an absolute pasting. It feels like 4-0 now, doesn't it? It just feels like it's tipping that way.
This was the look that Australia were going to get early in the series. If they win a test from here, this feels far more. We said it at Nagpur at the end. It felt like a 2013 loss, not a 2017 loss. But this feels very 2013 in terms of the...
Or Bangalore 2017, when they were so they were close in that fourth innings and then fell apart. There are times when you have an opportunity maybe, but you've got to be good enough to take it, and it's so difficult. India make it so difficult to take the opportunity in their home conditions. They've got so many resources to fall back on.
They might be the best two spinners in tandem ever. I mean, I haven't really thought this through. I'm sure there'll be comments. India had their great generation.
Sure, the quartet.
The quartet, but as far as two spinners operating in tandem and doing so well for so long, I mean, they've been doing this for a decade.
In terms of longevity, I mean, your Ramadan and Valentine sort of types didn't get to play as much Test cricket, so they didn't get to do this as often. They don't have the volume of records, but. Or, Clary Grimmett with Bill O'Reilly, if we want to go back to the 1930s. So there have been some great pairings, but this one, they're definitely the most prolific that I can think of.
Well, 10 for 66 and all that with Arthur Maley. That was the first session today, speaking of other great Australian leggies.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I said, 183 wickets against Australia together, those two players. Keep watching the numbers tumble, and the Australians will have a long break to try to get their heads together.
Keep watching the final word. Hopefully the next time I speak to you, I won't be feeling quite so poorly. I have a bit more energy about me. But
you've got the Delhi flu. You're taking it home with you as a tourist.
Maybe
this
that
is your souvenir.
That should be my Hall of Fame. It was the fever dream, the hallucinations I was enjoying from about midnight till 4 a.m. when I thought that I had destroyed Indian domestic cricket by privatising it. What was going on in my brain? I mean, Indian domestic cricket is very much privatised.
It was some sort of crossover of like telecom and the Ranji Trophy. Coming together in your mind.
Yeah, that's it.
You're being advised by Jeff Kennett to sell it all off. Sell it all off. That's how you make revenue. All right, this has been the Final Word Daily. We won't be with you tomorrow because there's no day 4, but we might record something anyway. Maybe Bharat and I will
suspect you and Bharat will
something.
record a couple of podcasts when I'm making my way back to the UK. I'll be back in Indore the day before the Test match. If you're relatively new to our feed, we make a couple of shows a week that aren't related to the Test match. An issues-based interviewee kind of show, which will come out in the next couple of days. A massive response to our Gary Kirsten interview last week. If you've not seen that, you can go back and watch the full thing on YouTube or listen to it on the feed. And our history show, Storytime, we're a little bit behind on that, so we'll try and make a couple of those between now and Indore.
Not everything's on the YouTube channel, so find us on an audio podcast feed as well. That's where all of the shows go up all of the time because we're much more organised in that format. Right, final word, Jeff Lemon, Adam Collins. See ya.
Bye.